as in it would be fun to win $1,000. You've got till 55 minutes past the hour to go to our website, newstalk1130.com, and enter the word fun to enter the contest for this hour. Good luck. I'm going to be writing this story here in probably about 30 minutes. It'll go up over at the Center Square, and the lead is already written. The lead to this story on the Institute for Reforming Government's new poll on the April 1st Supreme Court, it is already written, and Chris Reeder with IRG joins us. Chris, thanks so much for taking some time joining us here this morning.
Hey, thanks, Benjamin. Thanks for having us on.
The lead is, it wasn't crime that beat Brad Schimmel. Crime was not the issue that settled Wisconsin's Supreme Court race. A lot of people thought crime was an issue. We saw an awful lot of ads about crime, but in the end, only a handful of people voted because of crime. Explain the top lines of these numbers off this poll here, if you would, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the first why we went into the field and did this poll. I mean, every election that doesn't go one side's way, people can guess as to why voters did what they did. We thought it's important to really take a deep dive and get some data, particularly in Wisconsin, where next year is vital. There's another court race. There's the fall elections again next year for the legislature and the governor, and then after that, there's another court race. So it's vital to really understand what voters are thinking, particularly in an election in April where it's a lower turnout election. Of note, though, lower turnout, but that not proportionally across both sides, right? And that's an important differentiator between last November. Brad Schimmel had a drop-off in Trump voters that Judge Crawford did not have. She had 78% of Harris voters turn out, and he had 62% of Trump voters. So that gap means that it's a different electorate, and issues need to be different. So when we look at what happened in April and what our poll that we did in conjunction with the Napolitan Group and Scott Rasmussen, what it shows is, essentially crime was important, but at the end of the day, voters saw that both candidates, there was so much on the airwaves, right? There were stories last week, $27-30 million spent just on crime ads. They kind of washed each other out. So that became kind of a neutral issue. And we've seen that year over year in the court races. If you look back over the last four, where the four liberal members were elected, Rebecca Dallett, Jill Karofsky, Jana Protasewicz, and now Susan Crawford, all four of them got 55% of the vote. All four of them have a background of being a former prosecutor of some sort. And every campaign, they were able to kind of get to neutral against the conservative candidate on crime issues. So the leftists figured that playbook out.
Yeah.
To kind of take crime off the table.
The number that you guys had in the poll. Oh, sorry. Cutting you. This is a problem with cell phones. The number you had in the poll, 88% of all voters said crime was an important issue, but only 3% of voters thought it was the most important reason for Schimmel. 5% of voters thought Crawford being tough on crime was the most important issue. So while crime is when you ask voters, hey, what are the important issues? And they'll give you a whole laundry list. It wasn't crime that they were voting on. So what was it that voters, again, this gets back to a point that I've been making since after Election Day. There is a cadre of really progressive people in Madison who vote one issue, and that issue is Trump. And I think that the numbers here prove that out. But I'll let you finish that question. If it wasn't crime, what was it that voters were voting on in this election?
Right. No, and you just hit it. There were really two and a half issues. There was Trump, Elon Musk, and the Trump agenda, and the left was just absolutely ready and wanting and angry, and they were able to get voters out to the poll in an effort, the voters thought, to stop Elon Musk, to stop President Trump's agenda. I'll note in our approval ratings in the poll, President Trump's approval among these voters has dropped, right? In the past, he was still floating slightly above 50% in the state. in this poll, he's dropped down 6, 47 approval, 53 disapproval. So it's a different approval rating now than he had in November when he was able to win in the state with a much larger turnout electorate. So the left turned out to stop him. The right did not apparently see that same motivation. So, 600,000 people that voted for him last fall did not now, 5 months later, feel it necessary to turn out in order to protect the Trump agenda, if you will, or to kind of vote in line with what President Trump and Elon Musk were saying. The other big issue that is out there is the abortion issue that just continues to loom large in Wisconsin elections. It has for 3+ years now. That was the next issue. And, while abortion might not have been front and center on the airwaves directly, it was underlying some of the attack ads. And it was certainly being hit on in the mailboxes. There was a lot of direct mail going out to voters. And that also helped turn out people on the left. But it also turned out people who are independents, people, we've talked in the past about the college-educated women who, if they still see if that is a direct issue, then, maybe in the fall presidential, that's not so much a direct issue. So that kind of came off the table. People then were able to vote on economic pocketbook issues. It was made a direct issue again. Is Brad Schimmel going to support or not support the 1849 law? That was the kind of quiet issue that really permeated
the government that's closest to home. You're exactly right that abortion is now in the states, and in Wisconsin it is a state issue, and this voter group, again, the people who voted in April are not the same who voted in November. We're talking with Chris Reeder. He's with the Institute for Reforming Government. They've got a new poll. I've linked to it over. You can find it on my. I sent the press release where you can then go and read all of the questions and all the responses there. So go check it out. It's certainly worth your time. I want to make the point with a couple of numbers here, and I'll just stop talking in a moment and then you can react. But, when you asked the poll question, tell me if you approve or disapprove how each of the following individuals are doing their job. 29% of people said they strongly approve of President Trump, but 48% strongly disapproved. 22% say they strongly approve of Elon Musk. 47% say they strongly disapprove. When you have numbers that are almost 20, 30, but you've got almost half who say they disapprove, that right there tells me that the majority of people who voted in this election are progressive, liberal, Democrat, Madison area. I mean, this was literally hanging a curveball over the dead center of the plate for a home run hitter when they made this Supreme Court race about the Trump agenda, about Elon Musk. None of the other issues mattered because the voters who vote in these spring elections tend to be very progressive, very liberal, very Democrat, and they hate Donald Trump more than anything else.
Absolutely, and particularly in this point in time, right? I mean, there's a lot of factors going on at the national scene as the election was unfolding, completely out of control of Brad Schimmel or anyone in Wisconsin. But look, we also asked George Soros, right? There was a line of billionaires are trying to buy the election on each side. Elon Musk, his numbers, as you just said, were incredibly bad. 47% disapprove, but only 3% on Elon Musk were unsure. Everyone has an opinion. 22% strongly approved, 16 somewhat approved, 47 strongly disapproved, 12% somewhat disapproved. Again, only 3% were not sure. President Trump, 0% were not sure. Everyone has an opinion. We also asked about George Soros, who was doing a lot of the funding on the left. 41% didn't have an opinion. So the same strength of anger and hatred that Elon is facing did not apply across the board from the right to someone like George Soros, who is arguably doing the same thing and has done the same thing election after election that Musk was now trying to do in terms of getting involved in a state action. So it's yes, the anger is there.
Yeah.
It motivated folks on the left in Madison and elsewhere, and it's disproportionately towards Elon and the president, and did not apply to to the, their counterparts on the other side.
I see that Soros number as there were not enough Trump-trained voters who know who George Soros is. Look, everybody knows who Elon Musk is. And the fact that he's on television every other day only helps that. You got to be kind of politically connected to be in on George Soros. And so that 41%, some of that is people who know, but just, I'm not going to tell you. And some of that is they're not reading Politico every day. They're not jumping on Twitter. They're not living their life based on the latest update from the Hill. They don't know who George Soros is. I'm going to get you out with this question because I think that this proves a point, but makes me wrong. I said before the race that the best thing that Brad Schimmel could do would be to nationalize this race. That he had to get a turnout. He had to get reluctant Trump voters in outstate Wisconsin to turn out for him like they turned out for Trump. By nationalizing the race, though, I think the poll shows very, very clearly that it energized the other side. Democrats, liberals, the Madison vote bloc came out in droves. And it's in the he would and she would questions that are in the poll. And one of the questions is, he would rule to prevent abortion as a choice. 48% of voters said it would matter a lot to them, what Brad Schimmel would do to abortion. Now, when asked, she would stop Trump's agenda, 56% said that mattered to them a lot too. Some of that's going to be bleed over, but I think a lot of that is Democrats really see Susan Crawford as being the defense against Donald Trump. Next question, she would help Democrats gain an advantage in Congress through redistricting. Again, 52% said that matters a lot. But when you get to Act 10, a state issue, it's only 36% who said they voted for Crawford because it would matter a lot that she would stop Act 10. I think that we all said Brad Schimmel would be helped by nationalizing this election. And I kind of think the poll says that I was wrong, that Susan Crawford was helped a lot more by making this not a Wisconsin Supreme Court race, but a race, a chance to vote against Donald Trump, against Elon Musk, and against everything that they lost back in November.
Yeah, I think you're right. It motivated their side. It energized their side. They have that anger that the right did not have the same enthusiasm to get out and to support the Trump agenda and what the president is now doing. I will point out, so you made a good point in bringing it down to Act 10. The numbers kind of fall off there. We also asked about spending, and what was kind of fascinating to me is even with this electorate, which, strong leaning to the left, 55% for Judge Crawford, we also asked spending questions. And when it comes to, and as you know, in Madison, we're in the beginning of the state budget process. Governor Evers wants a 20% spending increase. When asked about spending and what the state should do, even this electorate was in agreement that the state should not increase spending dramatically, that state spending should be controlled so that it doesn't go up more than growth or inflation. And even a big chunk said we should cut spending. So even an electorate that is out to get Elon Musk, out to get President Trump, out to support abortion, when you bring it back to a pocketbook issue, they're still kind of conservative. So there's hope, I guess. So I'll leave you and your listeners with, there is hope when it comes to the state budget process and state politics in general, that they still want to see taxes and spending restrained. And, we'll see if that type of a message can get through in Madison.
It's like you've read my mind and you knew that I needed a second day story to write off of this. So we leave it with hope. That's what but no, this is a center right, maybe center left state, unless and until the question is Donald Trump. And then you have this group of people in Madison, the college towns, and growing into the Wow counties that would vote against Donald Trump. He could be offering free ice cream and puppy dogs, and they would turn it down 70-30. They just hate this man that much. Chris Reeder, go read the poll. Go read, see what it says, because you'll find numbers in there that I didn't get to, and it tells an impressive story. Chris Reeder, Institute for Reforming Government, thank you so much for taking some time joining us today.
Thank you.
It's, again, this is a turnout election, and the people who hated Donald Trump turned out. We can assign blame after that, but we got to get to the commercials, so we're going to spare ourselves that fight. Back in a second to wrap it up for this Thursday. I'm Ben. This is the Benjamin Yount Show on News Talk 1130 WISN.